Hey everyone, this is Olay Shorunke from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
So happy to be here with you. My name is Olay Shorunke. We're here with Festus Amoye. This is the first free online weekly mentoring for students with Laddering Your Success. Festus, we made it. It's been a journey. To see how far we've gotten is truly amazing, and I'm just so excited to be here.
I think Olay cut out there. And as Olay was saying, just excited to be here and be able to offer this free mentoring towards students. It's something we've kind of gone back and forth for a while with at LYS, which is Laddering Your Success. And that has been, how do we reach as many students as possible, especially with everything that's going on right now? A lot of students are struggling with their ability to figure out what they want to do after high school, and even just coping while they're in high school. And so these things have been extremely difficult and trying for both students and for families. And so with that said, Olay is kicking us off with this first mentoring. And this is going to be every Sunday around 2 o'clock. We'll go 30 minutes to an hour. Depends on how juicy the topic is. So what's our topic for Olay today? Or today, Olay.
All right, yeah, and I'm sorry about that. This is our first meeting. I don't know. I hit a button, and then I went into the metaverse, I think, and so I had to find my way back inside. I apologize about that.
No, unplugged from the Matrix.
Should have took the blue pill. No, sorry. So for this first meeting, well, before we even do that, let's talk about like why we're even here. All right. So a couple years ago, Festus wrote the book, Laddering Your Success, based off of his life experience. For those of you who don't know, Festus lost his mother and his father within a span of about 4 years while he was still in high school. And he was able to go to the Army. He was able to get about $80,000 worth of scholarships to graduate from Houston Baptist University with a degree in psychology. He's married to a wonderful woman with 2 wonderful children. And throughout all of those things, being a very close friend of Festus, I've been able to see sort of the transformation that he's been able to make. And all of those life experiences were thrown into the book, Laddering Your Success. And from that, we were able to grow that book into a social profit, which is now geared towards helping first-generation, non-traditional, lower-income students and families gain access to those building blocks, to that information, which will lead them on the path of generational wealth. It's not a small feat. It's something that has so many inner workings, ups and downs, and ins and outs. And so for us to still be here, for us to be doing things like this, I mean, look at this. We got these nice polos. I mean, and we're matching. I mean, this is pretty awesome. And so just to see the idea turn into some reality is really, really wonderful. It's really awesome. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about today was a really interesting conversation that I had with someone just yesterday. Awesome young man I met driving to Topgolf, and he was telling me about how he was able to go from being a mechanical engineer. So let me tell you, he when he was growing up, he had always wanted to be a mechanical engineer. He just, in his mind, thought that was the thing to do. And he thought that once he got his degree in mechanical engineering and he got that first job, his expectation was, this is going to be it. This is going to be the thing that I love to do. And so he had his mindset on that. Boom. And so he got his degree. He got a job with a great company. He came in first day, mechanical engineer, right? Gets ready to work. Within minutes, he says, I hate this. This is a true story. Within minutes, he says, I hate this. No, this is not it, right? And so he spent about the next year trying to figure out if this was what to do. He spent the next year trying to figure out what to do. Luckily, right, it was right around the time when COVID started to hit. They had a huge layoff. They had just mass layoffs. He just had a lot of people that they had to let go. He was one of those people that were let go. And he, like a lot of people, when they get let go or when they lose their job, found it to be a blessing because he did not like what he did. Remember, this is a young man who's fresh out of college. And he took it as a blessing. So he went and he tried to figure out like what was the thing that he loved to do, and he figured out it was coding. So he taught himself how to code, spent about 6 months learning how to code, got a job in coding, been doing it ever since, and he loves it. And so, I was telling him, I was like, listening to your story, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror, which is something that, I've found myself saying all the time when we meet people is, man, that story is just like my story. Man, your story is just like my story. And I said, yeah, I feel like that's exactly, what happened to me. And he said, yeah. And I said, man, I wish that you would have had that opportunity to figure that out earlier, so you wouldn't be in that position where, now, you're at a job you hate, you're stressed, you're not going to be who you are when you're happy, when you're doing what you love. Mm. And he was like, yeah. And then he said, yeah, but we got to go through those things. We have to go through trying to figure out, what we love and what we don't want to do. And I was like, absolutely. I 100% agree. But what I don't think we should have to go through or deal with is the thousands of dollars of student loan debt and debt that you may incur while you're trying to figure this out. Okay. And folks, that's where LYS comes in. So Festus, if you could, let's talk a little bit about, why it is important to figure that out earlier, right? Why is it important to figure out those things earlier as opposed to after college, right? What did the stats, what did the numbers show about those things? And what are some things that you can do while you're younger, right? For those of you that are in middle, high school, out of high school, trying to figure it out, what are some things you can do now to help you, to guide you, to make sure that you're picking or you're doing something that's within your purpose, that you love to do?
That's a really amazing story, and you're right, it does mimic yours, because I remember when you were doing accounting, and and at first we were with the Texans, so we all loved your job, and then you was like, hey, this is gonna end, and we're like, oh, whoa, hey, why? It's funny when your friends love your job more than you do.
Sure, man.
But that had so many perks with it, again, when it go down with the team and stuff, but then you got into another accounting position that was just dry, right? And so there's a lot to say depending on the company you work for and how you execute your skill set. And so let's talk about one quick stat. And this stat is that only around 50% of students who go to college actually graduate. As a matter of fact, the number is really, really less. If the highest number, if this is going off the top of my head, but you could actually go to, I believe it's the National Center for Education Statistics, NCES, to find this information out about graduation rates. For Asian women, it's actually the highest at around 46% or something like that. Unfortunately, for young Black men, it's actually around 27 to 30%, right? So you think about that. You get 100 people go to college, right? 37 graduate. How many of them have debt? And this goes to your point, right? We need to figure out ways that we can get some experimentation, some trial and error early. And see, the thing is, the way that the American education system is built, it's very difficult, right? Because literally it's built to try to herd people through, right? You get 30 kids in a classroom. Now it's a little bit less because of COVID, but you get as many in there, you get them as this information, give them all the same information. And then you hope that they have diversified outcomes that fit for them. No, that's not going to happen, right? And so because of that, we face a lot of challenges, especially if you're a first generation minority or non-traditional student. You're going to face some certain challenges, especially in this environment. And so I'm going to pitch it back over to you, Olay, but I have this question. What is kind of like that aha moment of finding out what your passion actually is? Right? Because we could all go to school and stuff like that, but what's like that light bulb aha moment that you get?
Okay, so wonderful question. There's two parts to that. The first part was before the aha, there's the oh no, right? Where you're like, so this is a mistake. I shouldn't be here, right? Because, that's what I was going through. I was working in oil and gas and accounting. And the thing that I hated about that was it was the same thing over and over each day, the same pattern. there was nothing unique. I really wasn't interacting with people. So literally everything that I'm doing goes against who I am as a person. I'm not the type of person to do the same thing over and over. I need to be doing different things to keep myself busy. I need to be doing different things. I need to be doing different things. I don't do well when I'm isolated and I'm to myself. I have no problem staying by myself, but I do better when I interact with people. I'm a people person. My job was not allowing me to utilize the skills that I have within me to complete successful tasks. So, that was the oh no moment, right? And so I had to figure out what is my niche? What is my thing? I'll be honest, I watched some videos online on YouTube. I read some articles. I read parts of books, just trying to figure out, how do you live with purpose? How do you, do things that fit who you are? And so I still show this to my kids to this day. I teach 5th grade and I tell them the importance of writing things down. I made a list, Festus. I just made a list. And I said, Olay, what is Olay good at? What does Olay love to do? Because that was just the theme that I kept getting is you got to figure out what you love to do, right? Essentially, it's a vocational type of practice, right? Where you're just figuring out those things. That chart that we always used to talk about where it's like what you love, things that pay, you want to find something that fits that. And I still remember I love to help people. I love to lead others. I love to teach. I love to take bad situations and turn them into good situations, right? I kept putting things like that down. And then I made another list about what are some things what do you love? What do you like to do? I put that I worked with the youth at my church, stuff like that. And one thing I kept noticing was the fact that the word teach just kept showing up. I kept seeing the word teach. I kept seeing the word teach. And sooner or later, right, if you see something, you'll see a pattern. You'll say, oh, okay, maybe that's something I need to pay attention to. Mind you, at the same time, my dad was really pushing me to become a teacher. Not for the reasons I needed, though. He was wanting me to be a teacher because, from an immigrant mindset, it's a safe job to have.
Yeah, practical.
Yeah, it's practical. You can just do it. You really won't have to worry about much. It's just a safe, good job to have. And I told him this a couple of weeks ago. I said, Dad, if you would have told me you need to be a teacher because your skills are perfectly aligned with the skills needed to be a teacher, I would have said, okay, sure, I'll do it, right? But he was like, you need to be a teacher. No, I don't. No, you're not telling me, and that's the thing. Sometimes you got to be told why. So my aha moment was literally, and mind you, while all this is happening, I eventually became a bartender because it fit with a lot of those skills that I love. I love meeting with people. I love talking to people, getting to know them, getting to help them out. And so I think I was driving home from somewhere. It was late in, I don't know if I left work. I think I may have been coming back home. And it's
the freeway, right?
I was on the Beltway, and I made that turn. And as I'm driving, I just stomped on my brakes, man. I just stomped on. Thank God no one was behind me, but I just stomped on my brakes. And I just looked up, and I was like, "Gosh, I need to be a teacher, man." It just hit me just like that. I don't know. I'm not going to try and figure out, at that time, I just felt like it was the Lord, just like he stopped me in my tracks. He was like, and I am hard-headed and I know that I have my limitations. And sometimes I felt like that was just like the culmination of me trying to, almost like Jonah, just trying to push it off. Because there was a part of me that was like, man, I probably should be a teacher. But I was just like, nah, I don't want to do it. I stomped on those brakes and I said, man, I gotta be a teacher. And so I drove home. The next day around 9-10 in the morning, went to Region 4, signed up, called my dad. Hey, Dad, signed up for the teaching program. 6 months, did my certification, became a teacher within I think a couple days after I passed that, after I got word that I passed the test and did paid my cert fees. I got a job working in the district that I graduated from. I mean, and it's been, I mean, the moment I walked in there, I was like, yeah, this is it. I've been running away from it. But I mean, you know, and I think the telltale sign of a great, that you're kind of working in that vein is, everyone knows being a teacher is hard. It's a thankless job, and there's so much stress that's involved. But even throughout all the stress, the student giving you the hug, the aha moment, like I literally had I had an aha moment on Thursday where, so I'm 5th grade kids. I'm teaching these kids about Dogecoin and Shiba because it has to do with place value.
Okay.
And so I asked the kids, how much do you think Dogecoin or Shiba is? And one of the kids like, I think it's like 42 millions. And that's just because we were just going over place value. And we started talking about some of these things. We did some things about like base 10 stuff. And there's no, I don't know if there's a better feeling than for a teacher than when you're in a class and it clicks. And the whole class goes, It's almost like a release of the ignorance going away and the knowledge coming in. And you're like, and you stand there, you're just like, yeah, man. It's almost like a sermon. Yeah. You know, when the whole church, let us pray. You just want to leave.
Just a couple things I want to kind of pull out of some of what you said, because I think you said a lot there, and I think you one big thing that I took away was that the work comes before the aha moment. You know, you did a lot of research. You know, you did a lot of exercises, and just kind of recapping the Ikigai is the 3 things with the circles. So that's one way students can do. You just go ahead and Google, YouTube Ikigai. Another one you could do is you could ask yourself what they call $1 million question. What would you do with your time if you had $1 million? Now, these are things that counselors sometimes ask students, but unfortunately, the average student only spends 5 minutes with their counselor a day in a year. So, and usually that's just spent trying to figure out classes. That's not spent figuring out what you're passionate about and what the future holds. And there's a bunch of different tests for that, but and surveys. But I think the key thing that you said was doing the work, and then after you do the work, the aha is going to come down the line. And so often we try to reverse that, right? And if we're talking about saving money for education, right? You could do that work without actually going to college, right? A lot of people, they say, okay, and I've heard this advice. I got this advice when I was in school. Now think about this. I've lost both my parents, and at the time I'm impoverished, right? Didn't have really any money, right? I'm sleeping on my dirty clothes, got all kind of mental anguish. And then, you know, the teacher just says, well, look, go to college. You'll figure out what you want to do once you get there. Go spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, some places a year, and you'll figure it out once you get there. You don't even go to the grocery store without a list. And every time you do go to the grocery store without a list, you end up spending more money, and you forget the stuff that you really went for. So this doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that? So those are some things I want to pull out from what you said. But there's something I do want to give a little bit of pushback from, and that's in terms of parents, right? And so the thing is, you know, a lot of parents, and if you're a parent, you really kind of need to listen in on this, is a lot of parents give their children the advice that fit them when they were going to school, rather than actually doing a little bit of work to see what things are like now. And so parents, if you're struggling with kind of helping your students find that motivation and find out what their passion and purpose is, we highly recommend have them tune in here, right? Have them tune into the free mentoring, right? Because it doesn't cost you anything. It costs a little bit of time, right? But they're going to get valuable information. And so sometimes parents give that advice that worked for yesterday and not necessarily for today. So let me ask this question. Now that and this kind of goes back onto the last part you were talking about your skill set, right? Now that you're teaching and you got a nice little side hustle going that's still using some of your bartender skills, right? Has your concept of like work changed? Because, you know, a lot of students, they don't have jobs, so they don't know what it's like to actually go to work every day. But now that you're leveraging your skill set to make money, has that concept changed for you at all, or what's that like?
Man, that question right there is gospel. I'll tell you why. That's a beautiful question. That's absolutely. When I go to work, it doesn't feel like work. You know, I had moments early on when I started teaching where it wasn't. I can't think of the word. See, these are some of the limitations that come with language sometimes. You know, some languages have these words that translate to something really weird, but it means a very unique feeling or thing. So when I go to work, it literally feels like flow. All right. And when I say flow, I mean, it's just like it's supposed to happen. It's just going. There's no force. You know, I can't tell you the stress that was involved with me waking up when I had to go to work when I was an accountant. I mean, when I moved in my first apartment when I was accounting, and I had to be at work by 8, I would wake up at 7:50. My job was about 15 minutes away. I would wake up at 7:50. I would either play Madden or watch Sons of Anarchy for about 15, 20 minutes before I even got ready. Just to, I don't know if I was loosening myself or just to get through the thought.
So you're telling me you would purposely be 10 minutes late before you got ready?
I'm not a perfect person, okay?
Okay, all right.
I'm not a perfect person, but I just hated that job so much. It felt like such a force for me to go in and do these, I was gonna say meaningless tasks. They were meaningful to some people, but to me, I just did not like what I was doing. Fast forward to today, I'll wake up at 5, 6. Ain't nobody gotta wake me up to go teach. Ain't nobody, I wake up before my alarm clock. And I'm about 4 years to go into work. Is it tough? Is it stressful? Absolutely, yeah. But the work, the calling, you know, the love and those things remain the same. And so yeah, that's the best way. It just feels like flow. It feels like water flowing. I'm supposed to get my lesson plans ready. I'm supposed to go and, you know, have these meaningful relationships. I'm supposed to go to their volleyball games. I'm supposed to catch up with them. I'm supposed to fill the gap that a lot of them face because they don't have a positive male role model in their lives. It's not easy, but it literally just flows with who I am as a person. So there's no real need for me to force myself, you know, when I do it. And that's one of the things that we really want for our you know, the people who take in LYS, the people who come and find us. And I think the most beautiful thing about it is, and I'm sorry if I said I won't go on too much, but I just had to talk about this. Some of the people who have been associated with us or who have worked with us in the past, just by them being associated with us, have been able to or still or right now are just finding so much about themselves. That self-discovery, man, is just so awesome. And a lot of it is just literally us living out, you know, LYS. And so, you know, I think, you know, people like Mariana, Elizabeth, Muhammad, you know, a lot of these folks that have just been around us have kind of just seen it, you know. And it's one of those things, it's just really awesome to see how it works around that. Yeah.
I mean, 100%. And I would just kind of throw this out there. The process that we've created that Olay is talking about is called being, knowing, doing, right? And so that's the LYS methodology. It's in everything that we do, all the products, all the services. We talk about being, knowing, doing, and being is about your character, values, and principles. The thing about education is so often it's almost like we forget we're talking to a person, right? It's like this little, you know, it's just like, okay, you know, imagine talking to this cup and saying, okay, this is what 2 + 2 is, right? The thing is, the cup is not going to give you any feedback. Well, the thing is, if you're dealing with a person, especially as an educator, right? You got to know how they feel. Do they even feel like learning when they come in the classroom? They don't. Why not? What happened last night? What happened this morning? What's going on in their environment? And dealing with those things, which when we talk about those things, you know, people often talk about character. They think of character in terms of, are you gritty and are you rough and are you tough? But really, character is just simply knowing what makes you alive. What's your why? If you don't have a big enough why, you're gonna drag. It's just that. And as an educator, if you know your students' whys, you know all their individual whys, it's so much easier to connect with them. As a parent, if you know what your students desire, what your child desires, it's so much easier to connect with them and help them find motivation, right? Because this is the big thing, right? A lot of people lose motivation and even need motivation because they don't know who they are. Like, it's kind of like that thing, with the dog race, if I don't know who's ever seen like those greyhound races where the greyhounds race each other, they let the rabbit out and then they all chase the rabbit, right? Why? Because all of them desire the same thing, to get the rabbit. And then whoever's the most athletic ends up winning. Well, it's not really like that in real life, right? In real life, in the real world, what ends up happening is you have to have your own motivation, right? And the more motivated you are with your passion, knowing your values, knowing your principles, that then turns into bigger prize, right? Because the thing is, success is different for every single person, right? Every person has, and this is also important, having their own definition of success, right? That's kind of how we start off is, let's start off with your being, your character, values, principles, and then define success. What does the success mean for you? Now, that might change 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, right? That might change 6 months from now, especially as you start to get goal-oriented and you start to hit some of those goals and you say, oh my goodness, this is a practice that me and my wife have, is we write down our goals, especially this is coming up January, right? We're coming up January 1st. We write down our goals for the year. And as we write down those goals, that determines what we're going to do for the year. And usually I try to get like, some really good goals, right? Yeah. And I write down the goals in 7 areas, right? So in the Laddering Success book, we have those 7 key areas. So I write down my cultural goals. I write down my social goals. I write down my financial goals, my educational goals. And then this is the crazy part. It'll be April and some of those goals are complete. And so this is the thing I that hit me is like, man, I think so small. Why do I think so little of myself? And part of it is because I know I'm stronger in certain areas. So maybe I need to really push in those areas where I'm really, really strong. And in those areas I'm not as strong, maybe I need to find some help. And that's what knowing is all about, knowing what resources are available and how to use those resources, right? To get things done. And then doing comes in, is executing with excellence. And so often we turn that over. We start off with doing, and then we go try to figure out some stuff that we don't know. And then the worst part is we never address who we are in our being, and then what happens is years down the line, months down the line, now we got all the student loan debt. Now we hate our professors because they should have told me. We hate our parents because they should have told me. We hate society. We hate Trump. We hate Biden. We hate everybody. And we're frustrated because nobody told me. Well, guess what? LYS told you, and LYS is here for you, right? So Olay, if you want to go ahead and close us out, our first inaugural free mentoring for students, you want to close us out in a fashion only Olay could.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us here for our first weekly mentoring session. Tell your friends. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Follow us on TikTok. We're going to get some really cool things going in on TikTok. I think next week, Festus, one thing I want us to talk about is students and parents, all right? Like the kids and the parents. One of the things we kind of hinted on it, and I was talking about it a little bit earlier. What do you do as a kid, teenager, high school graduate, when your parents really, really, really want you to do something, right? They're trying to force your hand to go in a particular direction, and you feel like you've got these things that you just love to do, right? You got these things that you love to do. How do you navigate through all of that? That's something I want you to think about. We're going to work on that next week, and we'll get that out here for our wonderful kids. All right, parents, teachers, come in. You got something you got a question you want us to talk about. You got something you want us to bring up. Do it. We're here to answer all those questions. All right, and I hope this helps you as you continue to ladder your success. Y'all have a great week now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, and keep in mind there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. It's time to take a step with laddering success.
All right. Take care.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.